welcome to Elevate Pod, where we elevate your mindset, inspire your spirit, and ignite your leadership journey. This podcast is brought to you by Elevate Leadership Services. My name is Pearl.
And I'm Chibwe.
We are the co-founders of Elevate Leadership Services and the hosts of Elevate Pod. The Elevate Pod is dedicated to inspiring and empowering listeners focused on minorities and immigrants. We offer valuable tools, resources, and pathways to foster personal and professional growth.
Thank you so much, Pearl. Today, I'm so excited. And at Elevate Pod, we are very, very, very honored because we're going to be interviewing Dr. Veena, who is going to be actually sharing her incredible journey. And I can't wait for you to hear it, her experiences, her thoughts, and how she has gone to retool herself. She's going to be talking about the art of networking in spaces not designed for you. And many of us think we have those spaces. Your differences is not something that you can hide. It is the very bridge that connects you to others. What do you do as a person when you walk in this room and realize it wasn't built for you? Not your voice, not your background, and not your story. Do not shrink to fit or rise to stand out. Because the truth is, some of us were never meant to fit in. We were meant to shift the room. We were meant to challenge the norms. We are meant to expand what is possible. And today we are going to be talking about how to network with power, even when the space wasn't designed for you. I'm going to talk to you or to briefly give you this rich bio. Not only a bio, but a short story about our honored guest, Veena. The question I have for you is, what happens when everything that once made you visible disappears? And how do you decide to rebuild anyway? Dr. Veena Kadidal grew up in India. She was surrounded by influence. Her parents were extraordinarily well connected. The kind of people who walked in a room or any room or rooms, and the room quietly reorganized around them. Doors opened. Introductions happened. Access was simply the water Veena swam in. She became a physician. She got married, and then she immigrated to the United States of America. And almost overnight, everything disappeared. The name that had meant something to her, the connection that shaped her understanding of how the world worked, the education, the doors opened, and all the open doors vanquished. The familiar water, gone. In a new country, she had to rebuild credibility, community, and identity from the ground up. She arrived with 3 fluent languages, a medical degree, and absolute confidence in her bones. And then as she applied for jobs and started her first American workplace, feeling for the first time in her life, completely invisible. Does that ring the bell? What she did next is why she is sitting in front of us. She's sitting at this podcast because her story needs to be told. She transitioned from medicine into information technology and came full cycle to healthcare IT. She was then elected Division Director of Toastmasters and served as Toastmaster Public Relations Manager for a district spanning 2 states. A role she was offered, not one she applied for, because her reputation arrived before she did. And she has coached professionals from invisible to employed, rebuilding resumes, sharpening interview stories, and watching people get hired. What an incredible story. She is a physician, a technology leader, a communicator, a coach, a mentor, and an immigrant woman who knows from the inside what it costs to feel unseen in a room you have every right to own. Does that sound familiar? She believes you are not unseen because you are invisible. You are unseen because you haven't decided to be visible. And she is here today to make sure you never feel that way again. Please welcome Dr. Veena Vijayaraj Kadidal.
Thank you so much, Chubwe. Veena Vijayaraj Kadidal. It's a long name, but I also go by Veena long name.
Veena, wonderful. Thank you.
Someone funny made it happen one time.
Wonderful. Thank you.
I'm happy to be here. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity.
No, thank you for coming, because this story is really powerful and I can't wait to hear.
Thank you and welcome again.
Thank you.
I love this quote. It says, true networking isn't about fitting in. It's about standing firm in who you are and inviting others to meet you there. Have you ever been surrounded by people and still felt invisible? Like you had to prove your worth before you could even speak. That quiet tension, the overthinking, the self-doubt, it is real. But so is your presence and so is your value. Today, we're exploring how to build meaningful connections without losing who you are. We're unpacking how to turn difference into influence and presence into connection. So we'll go straight into our questions for the day. So, Veena, when you walk into a space where you feel like an outsider, what internal dialogue and past experiences surface? And how do they shape whether you show up fully or hold back?
You gave a little bit of the experience that I had from when I was a child, because my parents really were the influential people. I grew up with that. I essentially, as you said, swam in those waters. I was the Leo Club president, which is a service organization, which is the Lions Club's youth wing for services. And what I realized was I had all that and I lost it. When I came to the US, I completely lost my identity on who I was as a person. And I didn't know what to expect because I didn't realize that fishbowl was the comfort that I had. But then all of a sudden I'm in this ocean and I did not know what to do. Then I started figuring out what I really needed to do. I recognized that I was fluent in multiple languages. I was fluent in many things that I knew, medicines, conversations, but at the same time, I was not fluent in the room that I was standing in. Culturally, not intellectually, but culturally. And that's when I started asking myself, what's wrong with me? When I had this something that I call the internal auditor telling me, are you sure you want to talk to them? Can they understand your language? Can they understand your accent? Do they really have anything to listen to? That do you have anything of value to talk to them about? My internal auditor would normally kick in. It's almost, think of it as a smoke detector. If you have a smoke detector and you have a piece of toast that goes in and it's burnt, what happens to the smoke detector? It's going off like crazy. That was my internal auditor. What I recognized was it was my way of keeping track of being aware of my surroundings. And I had to fine tune it to not go blaring. I had to calm it down. Recognizing that I needed to slow down a little bit and speak because I have value in what I had to say to people who wanted to listen. The minute my internal auditor turned off, I had to name it, of course. I called her my auditor. And the minute I recognized that she was there to protect me, and I was okay to step up and have conversations with people, I had something to offer to them. That made all the difference. Because the auditor she recognizes that the threat is gone. The minute the threat is gone, I'm okay. I am truly a valuable person who has something important to say. One of the things I realized is silence looks like from the outside that you have nothing to say. And I had a lot to say. You just met me now, and you know I have plenty to say and plenty of important things to say, because value comes from within, not necessarily from outside. If you stop telling yourself that you're not worthy to speak to somebody, that's true. I can't remember who said this. If you think you are right, you're right. If you think you're wrong, you're right. So the question is, how am I going to step up and have the conversation with people? So that's what I did. Not recognizing that, not stopping myself from doing what I wanted to do, I think was the biggest thing. The internal dialogue had to stop, and I had to step out.
Wonderful. You know, I love that because before I even move to the question that I have, is I think many immigrants and many minorities, the challenge that we have is that internal dialogue where you're fighting with yourself. Is it time for me to speak? Oh, no. How is my accent? How is that? This environment is not for me. But I'm happy you have your auditor, you've named it, have something to tell you, hey, it's either you're going to be out of the space that you want to be forever, or you have to start doing something.
100%. You have to step in. And I'll talk about this a little bit later, but one of the best advices I got was from my mentor and amazing friend, Sandra Nunez, who's a Toastmaster. She always said, say yes first, figure out later.
Before you say no.
Because the first point in your brain is the word that comes out of my brain is no. Recognizing that I was giving up opportunities by saying no without even thinking twice was the reason why I started saying yes. That's my mantra now. I live by say yes first, figure out later, because essentially what happens in life is you are giving up opportunities which were built for you. You build the opportunities because you want that for you. If you say no,
you never know
who's going to get that opportunity. Definitely not you.
Yeah. Nope. I think that is the best mantra that you can live by. And I hope our guests will really tap into that and realize that if you say no, you close your world to yourself. If you say yes,
I want to expand on that a tiny bit more, if I may.
Go ahead.
I am a member of Toastmasters International. And one of the things that I tell people all the time is when people are very afraid to step up and say yes to giving a speech or giving a table topics, which is an extemporaneous 1-minute speech about themselves, I say, just say yes.
Yeah.
You won't believe how many people have used that mantra now, and they are actually becoming more comfortable in saying, every time they come up and give a speech, they say, Veena says, say yes, just like Veena says, say yes. But those are not my words. Those are the words of somebody that Sandra heard from, and that became her mantra, and now it's my mantra, and now it's me passing it on to someone else as their mantra. So
Yeah.
essentially, what you pass on from one person to the next is what you figure out works for you. And in this case, for me, it was the saying yes that completely allowed us to change our lives.
Yes. And I think
Can I just follow up on that
go
before
ahead.
Shua comes in
Go
with her
ahead.
question?
Mhm.
I would like to know how the internal auditor took that.
The
Took
saying
that,
yes.
like saying
Oh,
yes, without thinking before the no. So how was that conversation with the internal auditor?
that is a fantastic question because honestly,
Mhm.
once you name it,
Mhm.
you frame it. You figure out, okay, I have a name for that auditor. And
Mhm.
now, when I step back and think about the number of times I've given up on opportunities,
Mhm.
the yes came easily for me
Mhm.
because I had given up so many opportunities for expansion at work, expansion in Toastmasters, expansion in my real world. Everything that I did, the internal auditor stopped me from doing it. So I had to fine tune it to a point where I had to say yes. And now I know when to quiet it down and when the freak out factor comes in. That way, she's not freaked out all the time. She has, I would like to say, I've given her an Ambien and she's asleep. So it's all about saying yes to
Mhm.
opportunities because you recognize when you say yes, you're saying yes to opportunities, you're saying yes to growth, you're saying yes to the future you, and the future you will thank you for saying yes.
Yeah.
Because the fear,
Nice.
it's not the imposter syndrome, it's the internal dialogue that's preventing you from going forward. The minute you make up your mind, you have a decision set in your head, you are doing it
Yes.
no matter
You
what.
just figure out how.
You just figure out because the minute you say yes, everything else is good,
Yeah.
golden. And then you realize what you need to do.
What you
You
need
either
to do.
sink or swim, and
Yeah.
you will
And
swim.
when you realize what you want to do, you always are going to make sure that you swim.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because you have said yes, and you find the means, you find the resources, you find the networks that's going to help you. I think
Yes.
many of us were in this situation, including myself, because we say no, or we have this internal, what you call the radiator for yourself, or the auditor. I can call it
Auditor.
the radiator, which radiates my moods. I think we all have that, and if we can have the thermostat that can regulate it and temper it, I think we can be swimming. You're speaking to me and you're speaking to our audience. I think we all need to hear this story. And thank you for your auditor. I think I have to turn my auditor or my radiator up or down depending on what I want so that I regulate it. Because right now it is in the, oh
Love
no, I
it.
think if you do this, what about this? So I need to tamper it down and say, I think you can just start and see where it goes. That's how life is. Thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. One thing we do is we normally have intentional strategies that we do. We have, and we have preparation practices that we also use in order for us to build on the connections that we do or fit in the environments that we have access to be in or become familiar or in the area there where we have to do. So for you, what are those intentional strategies and preparation practices you use in order for you to fit in or to be have representation that is not limited to you, to others, but is accessible to you as well?
Can you repeat the last part of the sentence?
What in order for you to have access to those environments that maybe people may think they are not accessible to you, what are the strategies that you're using?
Yes, I love this. One of the things that most people don't think about is running for office.
Yes.
When you think about networking, you're thinking about handing out cards to people so that they'll remember you. How many people really remember you because you gave out cards? How many people do you remember because you gave out cards?
Nobody.
Very few. However, how many people remember you for the stories you told?
Yeah, many.
And that's one of the things I say, because a bond is built through a shared purpose, and it outlasts every business card you have exchanged. In my case, for example, I was a member of the Leo Club, which is a service organization, and there it was a shared purpose. We never called it networking. It was a shared purpose. It's the same thing in Toastmasters. It's not networking, it's a shared purpose. Yes. We are there to help us grow as well as help others grow, build confidence, build leadership skills. Those are things that you can do. One of the things that I did intentionally was, again, thank you, Sandra Nunes, was the say yes first, figure out later part was running for elections for Toastmasters. I ran for elections as a division director. I lost my first election. And the next thing you know, someone called out my name, Mr. Russ Steele. Thank you very much again. He said, I nominate Veena. The next thing you know, I had no idea who Russ Steele was, never met that gentleman in my life. But he said it was something that I said that really connected with him. And he said my name. Imagine in a room full of people, when you don't know somebody and they step up for you because of what you said that connected with them, the authenticity matters a lot. So instead of handing out business cards, when you network, you're telling stories that matter to people and to you. And one thing at that point you realize is strangers become your advocates. The rooms become allies. And the votes that you were afraid to ask for, they come from directions you completely did not expect. When you run for elections, it doesn't have to be Toastmasters. Look around you. You have the Homeowners Association. You have your own cultural groups that meet on a regular basis. You have your networking groups. You could run for elections there, because I was an officer in my Kannada Sangha, which is my local Indian networking group, for a couple of years. So you can do a whole bunch of those things where you network with people, you meet with people, and figure out there is more to your life than just not meeting people. I've heard many people say, oh, I'm an introvert, I can't speak. That has nothing to do with networking. Networking is not about being an introvert or being an extrovert. It's you deciding to say yes intentionally, doing what you want to do in life. That way you can grow. Think about the fact that if you tell yourself, I have something to offer to people, what is it? If you know what you have to offer to people, that is part of the networking. It's not, oh, what does Chibwe want from me? What can I get from her? No, that's not the point. The point is, what does Veena offer to Chibwe and to Pearl that is worthy, that might be useful for them?
Correct.
To me, that intention is essentially what really made the difference. And one of the things I'd love to also say is a resume tells people what you have done. However, a portfolio shows people who you are and what you have become. That to me signals a whole lot more than anything else. And authentic networking does not produce a job application. It produces invitations.
Yes.
When people know who you are, what you're capable of, they call out for you. They are asking for you at that point, because you're not handing out your resume saying, oh, call me for a job application. call me for a job application. Do you have a job? Do you have a job? That's not the point of it. The point is really what it is you have authentically that they can get out of you. And be intentional, no matter what you're doing. If you are intentional and saying yes to the things that you want to do, you will get to network a lot better.
So that's networking in spaces you think are not meant for you.
Correct.
So be authentic. That's what I heard. Be intentional. Be of value. Not taking something out of that, but what can you put in? How can you serve others? That's what I hear. It's about service. What can I, if I go into that space, how can I serve this space?
It can be about service, but it's not necessarily just about service. Because I think when you say service, people go, well, I don't know if I want to serve people.
No.
At the same time, recognizing that you have value.
Of course.
And I think whether it's a job application or whatever it is, when they recognize you have value, they are looking for you at that point. But in my case, it ended up being service because that's who I am. For me, it's about service to the people. I do a lot of work for no money.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that for now.
Yeah. But you can also do service where you're also paid. I think when you look at, let's just look in general sense, the service, a lot of, I think, especially when many of you who are in leadership, not leadership as a leader, but in leadership capacities, you are doing a lot of service and you're being paid for it. And if you know that if you're in that space, because even in that space you're serving, people see what you're capable of. It's the same thing you're talking about, that when you're in that space, what's your value? What are you bringing to this space?
Yes.
And that's, So, okay, thank you.
Love it. What I'm getting from this is a whole different perspective. Most times when people hear networking, it's what do I have to gain? How will this work for me? And many spaces, many platforms were talking about, starting businesses, expanding, scaling. And so it's encouraged for people to network. And so people are getting into networking with the thought of, what do I have to gain from here? How would this benefit me? Not that those are wrong questions to ask, but that should not be the first thing we're looking out for, because then we can walk out without adding any value. But what you're saying is we walk in with the question of, how can I add value? What do I bring to the table, right? And then that will attract what you need.
100%. Yes. Because if they don't know what you bring to the table, what are they networking with and who are they networking with?
Why should
you might be networking with them wanting something, but are you leaving them wanting more? And asking for you eventually.
Yeah. Love it. That takes us into our next question. I'm looking forward to your response on this. How do you read the room? So, understanding power dynamics, unspoken rules, cultural cues, while staying grounded in your authenticity. I know you talked about feeling invincible, when you first relocated. How do you read the room for someone who's still in that space?
That's a really, really good question, because I have a lot of memories of what happened in that transition period, because what you don't realize is you give up your culture. You come to a brand new culture. Someone asked me, oh, do you have a problem? Do you have a culture shock? I did not understand what that meant when I first came in till I walked into my workspace, because I was fluent in multiple languages. I knew my information really well. At the same time, when I went into a meeting, it was a completely different feeling. And that's when I recognized what culture shock meant. Here's an example of something that happened to me at work one time, a long time ago. One of my colleagues, he would intentionally cut me off. He would intentionally speak over me and not let me finish my sentences. I paid attention to see if he was doing that to everybody else. He wasn't. It was just to one person, Veena, the immigrant woman.
Mm-hmm.
And I was young. So it might have been a combination of a lot of things. At the same time, it took me some time to recognize how to deal with it. How would you deal with it? And I recognized that I needed to slow down, not get upset with him, but intentionally slow down and speak. Because what I realized is when you pace your words, you take power over the room. When you go fast, you're going fast because you're thinking, oh my God, they have to finish and they have to listen to what I have to say. But the minute you slow down, it's a completely different ball game, because that changed the perspective for me, and he didn't shut me down. So recognizing that is number one. But the second thing is, for me, the best thing that I got was from one of my very good friends who was my colleague and a fellow Toastmaster. She handed me a DVD.
Resource.
Do you know what that was?
It
was a movie. It was The Wizard of Oz.
Wow.
She handed me The Wizard of Oz and asked me to watch it.
Wow.
What I did not realize was Wizard of Oz is an amazing movie that tells you everything you need to know about culturalism in many ways, because these are the words and languages that come out of people's mouth in a boardroom, in conversations with people. For example, when they talk about the yellow brick road, when they talk about the Tin Man, when they talk about, what's her name now, Dorothy, and the red slippers, this is built into Americana. If you don't speak the language,
you're lost.
Of culture, then you are lost.
Yeah.
So for me, learning things like that helped me tremendously. Watching movies, watching Friends, watching Seinfeld, everything that I heard from what was going on, listening to podcasts. I think for me, the conversations start either with podcasts, with books, or with movies, because when you can speak the same language that the rest of them speak, it is a completely different ballgame. Because recognizing where you can go makes all the difference. I call this cultural archaeology, because as I'm watching people speak, I'm listening to them, but I'm also watching their faces, and I'm trying to understand, dig deeper into what they're trying to say. Because digging beneath the surface is really the communication part, where you can talk about specific things without really understanding what they mean. Or when someone says something, I had to go write it down to see what that meant. When someone said, oh, Dorothy's going to Kansas, what does that even mean? Who's Dorothy? I kept asking, who's Dorothy? Who's Dorothy? Without recognizing she was the main character in The Wizard of Oz. So to be able to communicate with people in a culturally different place where you're not used to, you have to. One thing I will say is you have to be adaptive without necessarily being assimilating. Mm-hmm. So you can adapt without assimilating, being you adapt to what's going on, the way you speak, how you say things, the way you might dress. You don't have to do everything that we do here in the US, but at the same time, keeping your cultural identity is important. To me, it was very important that I am truly authentic to myself while still blending in and being part of the community here. I think that probably was one of the best decisions I made, because I can't fake authenticity. No. This is who I am. People will see you for who you are not the minute you try to be someone you're not.
Yes. Yes. I think I like the way you said that you have to learn the language. You have to then learn the language in the room. And I think many of us, because we are immigrants, we move from the places where we were so familiar with those cultures, with the language which were maybe straightforward. And then when we come here, we expect the same thing. So to assimilate, as you say, assimilate, but to not lose yourself.
Adapting without assimilating is what I
Yes.
think matters a lot for me,
Yes.
because then I am me authentically,
Yeah.
but I'm
Yes.
still being a part of the system
Yes.
and growing here because this is my home now.
Yes. 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 No, I think I hope people listen because I've seen people who have gone on the other side way where they've lost themselves, and I'm asking why. I think you really need to be yourself because you start seeing the fakeness in the people, and that doesn't help in the future, because once you lose yourself, you'll never be happy with self. Yeah. We have so much to learn from your wisdom, but it's good to know that as we come here, we have to learn for sure. Uh,
And every day is a building block in many
mhm,
ways
mhm,
because you recognize
mhm.
you can't jump into the ocean and learn to swim and float at the same time.
No.
It's drinking in slowly, a little by little by little, recognizing who you are,
Yes.
learning who you are, and
Mhm,
growing into who you are. I
mhm,
think all those come over a period of time. And for me, it's taken me a long time. I've
mhm,
had to reinvent myself from who I was to who I am today,
mhm.
essentially leaving everything behind. All of us, I think, as immigrants, we leave everything behind. Amazing people, families, sometimes not so amazing lives, and coming in here and starting from scratch with no knowledge of anything. It's like maybe one brick here, maybe one brick there. And the next thing you know, hey, you have a castle.
Yes, and I think many of us have made those castles you're talking about. It may not be huge castles, but we've made castles that are very good, and we are building those castles for our children's children.
Yeah.
They're going to thrive in these castles that
Yes,
we've built, and that is
absolutely.
what's important. Yeah. Yeah, thank you. But how do you move, as you have talked about learning the language, staying authentic, being who you are whilst you rebuild or you retool yourself to make sure that you can thrive in that space, whichever space you stand in. How do you move from simply being represented in that room to building the influence? Because sometimes, yes, you've gone to where people can listen to you, but doesn't mean that you have that influence. So how do you move to that space whilst ensuring that your voice is being heard, even when others can continue to dominate the conversations, which is quite a reality that we have, especially in our workspace, where many of us, especially for minority women and immigrants, are trying to represent others. So how do you do it?
So there is a difference between being in the room and being off the room.
Mm-hmm.
Credentials will get you a seat at the table,
Mm-hmm.
but the story gets you the floor.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things I love to say is preparation is the biggest equalizer.
Mm-hmm.
The minute you prepare, you know as well, especially working in the government agencies, working in Toastmasters, one of the things is if you know better than the people who are there, people will come back to you all the time, no matter what. If you are the voice of the people that knows what you're talking about, they will always come back to you. And then at that point, from being the outsider that they tolerated,
Mm-hmm.
you become the resource that they cannot afford to ignore.
Mm-hmm.
So essentially, when you know the data and the data behind the data, when you know the policy better than the policymaker, then they are definitely going to go back for you. In my case, one of the things I can say from working in the government is where they recognize my value to what I bring, because when I speak with the background and the education of what I know, but I've also done my research before I speak up.
Mm-hmm.
Respecting that comes naturally
Mm-hmm.
when you're not lying through your teeth or trying to prove a point to somebody. But when you know what you know, you step up and you speak at that point. So one of the things, there's something like when someone says something, I'm not just listening to what they're saying, I'm hearing what they're avoiding saying as well. Because a lot of times there is something that is said in the silence or in the words, in the mannerisms. For example, one of the times when I went in for an interview, the question that came through, when I answered the question, I saw the quizzical look on one of the interviewers' faces. So these are things you pick up on, because not because I necessarily know 4 languages, but essentially it's because as a human being, you pick up on things that sometimes you don't, other people might not. So for me, that was one of those things. So I have a practical framework in a way. I'm hoping this might help other folks. The first one is I speak early, because the first 10 minutes, if you don't get an opportunity to speak, that is your first 10 minutes that you've lost, which you're never getting back. So if you get an opportunity to speak the very first time, speak up. Second, I use a bridge technique when someone cuts me off, like when my colleague used to cut me off. I let him cut me off initially. I don't have him take it back. I don't take it back immediately, but what I do is wait for some time. And then when there is a pause, when there is enough time, I take it back to the bridge about as I was saying during this time and whatever it was. So take it back to when you started that conversation, when you were cut off, but bridge it to what they were talking about. That makes a huge difference. Number 3 is I asked the question that nobody asked. People remember because you were the person that nobody asked, had the question that nobody else knew about. That is 3. And the 4th one is I always follow up. So when you follow up, people remember you. They remember the name. If you give them some feedback on what it was about, that makes all the difference. So start with speak early, speak small. Second is use your bridge technique if you get cut off. Third is ask the question that nobody asked. And 4th is follow up. I think between that, people don't follow you in arguments, but they follow because they trust in you. When you say something, they go, oh, that matters a lot. And the other thing that's worked for me really well is mentorship as an influence, because we talked a little bit about how when you mentor someone else, the most sophisticated networking strategy available to any of us is making someone else's success possible. The fact that I'm talking about Sandra Nunez and Russ Steele today shows the power of the networking and mentorship that they gave me. And I feel like it's the same thing for me, where when I help people with their resumes, when I help people with their interview skills, when they get their jobs, because I've helped multiple people get their jobs, just helping them with the interviews, rewiring their framework in terms of how they presented themselves. That to me is a huge positive, because mentorship is something that walks in other people's lives. That's bottom line. It's when you can, sorry, my brain. Mentorship, essentially mentorship is what helped me get my words into other people, because it's not my words, it's really their words. And they did not know what they had or what they were capable of till someone said what they were capable of. Like Sandra knew the other side of me, which I didn't know I had. And that's essentially what I'm doing to other people, where I'm recognizing what they have and they don't know they're capable of. So the minute you have that experience, it changes your world and theirs as well.
Wonderful, wonderful. Yeah, I like the bridge method, where you bridge back. You haven't argued with anybody else, but you just tie them in, and the person is thrown off because there's nothing they will say, because you've taken them off the tangent. And paying back or paying forward.
Paying forward.
That's what I heard. You've paid forward, because when you are mentored, you learn something. Somebody allows you to learn faster or by example, and you have gone ahead to support others. And those who have supported, they'll always support somebody else. So thank you for that. Pearl?
So my next question comes with a little bit of a twist because of what you have spoken to. I think this is something that our audience needs to hear. And you just said something to it, you were about um, taking it back. Now, taking you back to that particular situation, I know as immigrants or as the odd person in the room, and with your realization of something that is being directed specifically to you, for what reason you did not go into it so much, but as to why they would react in a certain way only to you and not to the other people in the room. So many times people have found themselves addressing that specific reaction or addressing that specific behavior, if I could call it that, for lack of a better term. But you have spoken to a strategy of taking it back. If you could just speak more to that, because my question is about how do you remain authentic and courageous in your networking, even when you realize some specific acts that are targeted directly at you, be it because you're different or maybe they think you don't have anything to say that's valuable, whatever the reason might be. So many people fail to speak up because of those things and they're shut down. So how do you see that? You were not confrontational, but you still stayed authentic, courageous, took it back. Can you just speak to that reaction in those few moments? How do you not, attack and defend?
Oh, the auditor was screaming, by the way.
Okay, I want to hear about the internal auditor in those few seconds.
My auditor was screaming, and I really wanted to scream as well because, number one, I was shocked. And I think this is something that most of us can relate to because we are not used to the idea of someone shutting us down, or we might be used to the idea of people shutting us down and we just let it go because we don't speak up. It's a very common thing. I've heard both sides of the aisle. I've been on both sides of the aisle. And I think for me, it took me a long time to recognize how to deal with him because I would come home really frustrated, yelling at home with my husband. How can he talk to me this way? But then again, I think it took me a while to recognize how to deal with him. I did a lot of reading. I did a lot of I had a lot of conversations with friends, with mentors. And I think I cannot stress enough how important mentors are, especially times like this when you have a sounding board and you have someone who might give you an opportunity to help you grow if you listen. And that's what I realized because I have a lot of feedback for friends and family and mentees when they talk about what might they do to change. The point is, what works for them might not work for me. But for me, learning how to frame it, learning to slow down, because what I recognized was in his mind, I was this young immigrant woman who used to be a doctor who's now an IT person. What does she know about IT? Mm-hmm. I think this is me thinking about it now after all these years. However, my way of calming down and going slower shut him down faster than it would have if I had sped up or raised my voice. Because intentionally, when you start speaking softly, people are waiting to listen to what you have to say. And that's what I learned. I might have read it someplace. I don't know. Some mentor might have told me this. I don't know how it worked. It might have been my husband who helped me through this process. I don't know. But I think that strategy really worked for me. And it's worked for me throughout because as individuals, we work in different groups of people, with different groups of people, with different backgrounds, with different educational experiences. So essentially, every single human being is different. And I think learning how to decode them in a way is what makes things work, because it's easy for me to say, oh, go softer, go slower. It might not be the strategy that works for you. In your case, you might have to step up and be firm sometimes. And one thing I've learned is be firm. No matter what you say, don't be wishy-washy, because me as an Indian immigrant, we Indian, especially women, tend to be a little bit more either wishy-washy or soft. We don't speak up. I'm not one of those people. I do speak up, and I'm comfortable speaking up. I'm okay with taking feedback. I'm okay with taking criticism. But again, don't have such a thin skin that you freak out about everything. For me, it's okay. I have a hide. You want to say something? Say something. We can have a conversation. That's okay. I ended up having to have a conversation with the gentleman, actually. And that made a difference too, because he might not have realized what he was doing.
Yeah.
And it might have been unintentional. But again, part of me this was my strategy to slow things down a little bit and have a proper conversation with him.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you. And you know what? I've used that strategy of just going, because many times, even for me, I've been taken aback in those conversations. So, as you said, your thermometer or your radiator or your auditor is just saying, bounce back, bounce back. But you can you can't do that. But also, as you go to talk to somebody, you have to be very cautious of when you talk to them, because you have to pick an opportunity that is conducive, because you may catch them at a point where it can go south. So
100%. You are so right about it, because the thing I've learned over the period of time is you have to be a diplomat.
Yes.
No matter what,
Yes.
Be the diplomat, because it's easy to speak up.
Yes.
Words said out cannot be taken back.
Yes. Yes.
Feelings said out cannot be taken back. But gather your thoughts, gather your feelings, think about it, write it down on a small piece of paper nobody else gets to see, and ask yourself, what could you have done differently? Correct. And I think that strategy has always worked for me as well. Like, what changed? What happened? Because again, the internal auditor is listening in and picking up things that you might not have picked up. So it's a good thing that you have that auditor. And at the same time, going back to troubleshoot and say, okay, what can I change in how I communicated or that person communicated? Because it's a learning experience. Every day is a learning experience. What happened yesterday is not going to happen today. Correct. And the person you worked with yesterday is not going to be here today. You might be working with someone else tomorrow. So how do you navigate this world, which is ever changing, and the landscape that's ever changing?
Correct. And I think for me, what I also see is to be sure, as you said, is you have to also be amenable to changing. Because as much as you've gone to ask this person, you say, okay, I've noticed. Because you have to notice more than once. You cannot just go and talk to this person the first time they talk to you. If you now it's a pattern once, twice, then you can go back and say, I've noticed this is happening. Is there something that you want me, as you say, be the diplomat in a way? Yes. So it's having your own thermometer, gauging it, but at the same time be able to advocate for yourself to ensure that that person stops what they're doing in the group, because nobody will speak for you. Nobody stop that at all. All right. You have answered a lot of some of the questions that we have. You've talked about navigating spaces that are not designed for you and the strategies that you have developed. I see in you talked about your mentors, how you've developed all those strategies, the leadership strategy, how you've developed your voice, how you've developed your sense of purpose in everything that you're doing, in the stories that you've been talking about. So most of these questions, I'll try to make sure that I may be combining some, because you've answered many of these. And also you've also talked about how somebody may be using that space where they think they are intimidated or is not meant for them. I think you addressed much of that. But let me ask you maybe to another question, that if you yourself, and this is not only for you, this can also be for the younger ones that are upcoming. If you could go back and speak to your younger self, before entering these spaces that we think are not meant for us or were not meant for us? What wisdom would you share with that younger Veena?
I've asked this for myself many times. And I think there are a few things that I will say. One is I'll be kind to myself, because there are things that you know, and just be confident in the fact that you know. There are people who will change your life. The people that will change your life are already in this room. And all you have to do is say yes. The minute you say yes, you have opportunities handing out to you in no man's business. The second thing I will say is join Toastmasters. The reason why I would highly recommend joining Toastmasters is, let me tell you a story about what happened when I first went for an interview. I went for the interview and this lady asked me a question. I answered, but what I missed was a basic thing that as an immigrant, I did not know. That is, know your audience. The answer I gave her made no sense to her because she was not the doctor that was from India. She was the doctor from the US. So I told her about a disease that existed in India, not here. Not recognizing something as simple as knowing the audience would mean I would talk about Lyme's disease. I would not talk about tuberculosis. Yeah. Because tuberculosis is rampant in India, but not here. So when you have things like that, which you might not know, Toastmasters teaches you from scratch every single time someone steps up in front of the podium. Who's my audience? What am I going to speak about? And how can I help? So that's number one. And the number two is saying yes, no matter what, because there are people there willing to give you opportunities. 3, I say, Veena, be proud of who you are, because you have so much to offer this world and people will see it. It's just a matter of time. What I have also recognized is I've built a life that's required extraordinary courage to construct one brick at a time. Of course, just one yes at a time, one brick at a time, but I have built what I have built into who I've become. The resilience that I have had over a period of time is something that I will tell her, you are one of the most resilient people I've known. No matter what, anything that you go through, you are going to shine and you're going to do an amazing job. With people, with human beings, at work, it doesn't matter. You're not invisible. Your identity doesn't have to do with your credentials, with your medical degree. It doesn't have to do with your licenses. It has to do with who you are as a person, the authentic person you are. And I will speak to her with gratitude, thanking her for everything that she has done to be who she is, because I've changed so many people's lives. I don't talk about it because it's not for other people to know. But then I realize I'm minimizing what I do because the impact that I have can be available to other people as well. The minute you step up and say, sure, there are more people that are worthy of having this conversation, that makes all the difference. Let me think about, and every hard moment was a tuition. It was purchased with the wisdom, and she could just give it away for the rest of her life. Because I've really worked hard to get to where I am today. Everything that I've done so far has been intentional. My life has been more about, you would think it's a scattered resume when you think about the fact that I have a medical background, I have Toastmasters leadership, communication, and I have IT. But what I have realized is every single thing that I have done so far has been intentional and me architecting my life to where I want it to be.
Wonderful. I think young Veena will be so proud.
Thank you. I think so too.
Yes, because I think you describe how you have evolved, but still remained grounded.
Yeah.
How you are providing support to many, but remains authentic. And kudos to you, because
Thank
you
you.
still have many more lives to change, many more lives to spearhead, and our audience is another life you're going to change. So thank you.
Thank you.
I think we have one more last question for because of time. Wish we could continue this story, but I think we will at another time. I think we'll call you back because your story is just so incredible and so powerful, and we need to hear more of this from people who have walked and made the best out of the challenges they have and allow those challenges to speak for them.
I would love to come back. Thank you.
Yes, yes. Over to you, Pearl. Thank you so much. Thank you. Yeah.
Now, for our last question, many of us feel unseen, many of us still feel unheard. And this is because we've had our confidence shut down along the way. What is that one truth, one mindset, or one action you would like for our listeners in that space to carry with them as they step into their next room?
Oh, that's a fantastic question. Just remember, you did not arrive in the room empty. You arrived with everything you have, and you have survived. Every language you have, every book you've read, essentially everything you have with you. You're not unseen or unheard because you're invisible. You are unseen or unheard because you have decided not to be visible yet. And this is something that I truly believe in because the room is going to be ignorant. The room's ignorance of your value is not evidence of your value's absence. When you think about the value you have and you are ready to give it out to them, people will recognize your value. When I talked earlier about the mindset where we tend to not speak up because we have either an imposter syndrome or one of those things where, ooh, do they really want to talk about me? Do I really want to talk about what I have? What value do I have? Do I have an accent? Oh, but they're not going to understand my accent. I think the biggest thing I can leave our audience, especially if they're immigrants who are confused about the fact that they have an accent. Just remember, everybody has an accent. It might be a New York accent, it might be a California accent. Just because you're an immigrant means nothing, because I might have a South Indian accent or a North Indian accent. It's still an accent. So let go of those little things which don't mean anything. You are more than your accent. You have more value because of who you are as a person. You have more value because you bring something to the table that nobody else has. In this room of 3 women that I see each of us have so much value that the other person does not have necessarily. So you bring something unique into this world that everybody needs. So when you think of the immigrant community that is listening to this podcast, think about how much more value each one of us has to offer to that room. And I will also say, yes is not an answer to the question. I'm going to bring back Sandra Nunes to this because it is such an important part of what my whole life has been. So when someone wants to stretch you, remember when Sandra Nunes gave me this example of yes is not an answer to a question. Yes is a declaration to the universe. Because when you say yes, every room that changed my life has begun with that yes that I said the very first time, and every time again after that. Every time. All you have to do is say yes. You will find the answer afterwards. Go figure out the podcast. Go figure out, and you have books, you have the internet, you have ChatGPT,
Oh, yeah.
you have the world at your fingertips. All you have to do is say, I'm going to do it. Say yes. That's your action item for everybody that's wanting to say that. The moment you feel like you feel invisible, you feel unseen, you forget that entirely that you ever felt invisible yourself. You really need to say yes to yourself first. You need to feel visible before other people will find you visible as well. Because in my case, I was lucky enough to have an amazing mentor who saw my value and my invisibility disappeared at that point. And I think once you start belonging with people, once you start talking to the right people, it makes all the difference. Find mentors, find mentors, find mentors. Makes a difference. And join an organization that's going to change your world. It could be anything. I can't tell you which one to join, but I will say join Toastmasters because it truly has made a difference in my world. I've been in Toastmasters 24 years. The reason I continue going to Toastmasters is because it has framed my world in so many ways, whether it's conflict resolution, having conversations as part of the interview, with mentoring, being mentored, mentoring other people, doesn't matter what. The leadership skills, the communication skills, everything that I learned past my education has been because of Toastmasters.
Yes. I wish you
And you
could
belong.
listen. I understand that because I have been shaped by Toastmasters because it allows me to practice without criticism. Amen.
It is your laboratory for life.
It is. And we give back. I think one of the things is it has given us so much, then we have to give up so much as well. Yes. We have come to the end of our podcast. And Veena, so thank you for so many wonderful stories, so many wonderful ideas, so many strategies of how you have made it yourself and how other people can walk in your shoes. Thank you to you for the many people that you support, you mentor, who have gone to do even better than they expected if they did it themselves. But because of you, they are where they are today. And that is something you don't stop. No matter where you are, you continue, because you never know the person you impact today, how they are going to impact the world. We need leaders who continue to impact the world in a positive way. And you have done that. To our listeners, today we talked about the art of networking in spaces not designed for you. And you heard from Veena how she has navigated this ship and used it and became actually an expert in it. You can be one. You may not be in control of the room you walk in immediately, but you can control how you show up in it. You can control your posture, you can control your mindset, and you can control your intentions. And what happens when you show up with clarity and with authenticity, something powerful can happen. You can move from being unnoticed to unforgettable. And it's up to you. Because networking is not just about connection. Networking is about the legacy you leave in every room, every interaction, every space that you enter. So, what are you going to do about it? What are you going to do about this art of networking so that you can own the space and transform the space? Thank you, Veena, for this discussion.
Thank you so much for the invitation. It has been truly phenomenal talking to both of you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Veena. We're so glad to have you today. We have learned so much today. To our audience, you don't want to wait to be invited. As we have heard today, you arrive with intention. And intention includes preparation. We have learned today. So you don't shrink to fit, you stand to contribute. Your presence is earned through your journey, your resilience, and your voice, your story. So step in fully, speak with clarity, listen with purpose, and when you leave something behind, an idea, a connection, a shift, because every room you enter should be better because you were there. We look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Thank you for joining us on this journey to elevate and inspire. Until next time, lead with purpose and grow with